Black tax is a very touchy subject, whether you're on the giving end of it or on the receiving end. However, the impact that black tax has is undeniable, both positive and negative. On the positive side, it really does help lift families out of poverty. However, on the flip side of that, it has the negative impact of holding back or slowing down the ability of those giving to build financial freedom and stability for themselves. This video is going to be a deep dive into black tax, what it is, how it came to be, and the role that it plays in our communities today. And it wouldn't be my video if I didn't share practical tips that you can actually employ to help you manage black tax a little bit better if you find yourself on the giving end of it. Black tax is the financial support that young working professionals are socially obligated or expected to provide to their families on a continuous basis. This is above and beyond their own living expenses. This sometimes unspoken social obligation can be linked back to the concept of ubuntu, which is beautifully captured in the saying umuntu ngumuntu ngabanye abantu, which translates to you are who you are because of other people, really capturing the essence of the human existence. You are not an island, you are because other people are as well. It would be incomplete to define black tax without acknowledging its roots in apartheid South Africa. Quote, while the ideological concept of black tax is constantly changing to accommodate new economic, political, and social realities and opportunities, what is common, however, is its function that is often similar to those of labor migrants and remittances under apartheid. Therefore, rather than black tax being a concept that emerged in post-apartheid South Africa, it is in fact the continuation of legacies of apartheid that shapes the context of practice of black tax today. As I said at the beginning of the video, it is impossible to ignore the impact of black tax, especially in helping lift families out of poverty. If you look at Zimbabwe, for example, where the economy has failed, black tax plays a very crucial role in sustaining families there. And a lot of families have actually spent a lot of money investing in their children's education in the hope that those children will be able to find better opportunities abroad and in turn be able to help those back home. While this has worked for a lot of families in Zimbabwe, not all families are able to do this for their children because of the amount of privilege, access, resources, sacrifice, and a little bit of luck that is required in order to educate your child to a certain level, as well as for them to find success after that education. Although a lot can be said about the sense of community behind Ubuntu and black tax, it is impossible to ignore the gaping hole that this is trying to address, and that is the failure of the government. Quote, the government affords to hide behind the socio-economic development impact of remittances at the family and household levels, and thus does nothing to develop the country because it knows that people will migrate and find recourse in other countries to support their families and thus keep the country going. This amplifies the proposition that remittances may strengthen a moral hazard in terms of over-dependence on remittances and the total abandonment by people receiving remittances and their nation state to implement alternative strategies of socio-economic development. If remittances allowed socio-economic development at the individual level, the government was therefore left unaccountable for its failure to develop the country and keep its end of the social contract. This is because people managed to fill the gap left by the government through remittances. It is clear that black tax has a role to play. I myself am a product of black tax. My university education was paid for not only by one person, but by multiple people in my family. My uncles, my aunts, my grandparents, they all came together to pay for my university education because they wanted to give me the opportunity to be educated and access certain opportunities in the hopes that I would be able to be financially independent at a certain point and in turn be able to help the rest of the family. And in a world where people live with student debt or are unable to go to university altogether, I am forever grateful. I've also seen black tax being practiced multiple times throughout my life as a very normal part of our family and the practice of Ubuntu. As great as black tax is, and as much as I have personally benefited from it, it is impossible to ignore the negative impact that it has, especially for those who are doing the giving. The first one is it negatively impacts their ability to be able to save and invest in the same way that their colleagues who do not have the same obligation are able to. If you also take into account the pay inequality, this further makes people at a disadvantage, especially when they're starting out their careers. So while their colleagues are able to think about their own personal finances on a very individual level, others are not able to do so if they have the social obligation to support their families back home. This becomes an even bigger disadvantage when you consider pay inequality, especially for black young women. Another disadvantage of black tax is the impact that it has on the individual's ability to take risks, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. It is much easier to take the risk of starting a business when you are only concerned about meeting your own personal expenses. However, when you have other people depending on you, it becomes a much bigger risk, and sometimes a risk that you simply cannot afford to take. Therefore, this ends up limiting the financial possibilities for a lot of young working black people. The last negative impact of black tax that I want to share with you is the impact that it has on people's relationships within the family. When there's no clear expectations or boundaries, it is very easy for relationships to become strained, from people becoming overextended and ending up sending all of their money back home and having nothing for themselves, to people building a sense of entitlement, which then breeds a sense of resentment from the person who is doing the giving. It can get very complicated. There is no shortage of horror stories where relationships have been strained and families are fighting over black tax. Quote, "More than half my salary goes to support my family. I can't travel because there's always an emergency. I can't buy a house just yet. I only recently bought a car, even though I have been working for 6 years. I earn really well, but because of black tax, I need to include my family's budget into my spending. When I look at my peers and the risks they have taken, I do get resentful. They are much further. I don't want to start my own family because that will further add to my expenses. On the bright side, I did splurge on my car, and I plan to buy my first property in 2 years' time." One thing I definitely do not want to do is to discourage anyone from helping their family financially, especially if you can afford to do so. However, I do want you to do it in a way that is effective and that won't leave you financially vulnerable yourself. So here are some tips to help you manage black tax. My first tip for you is to put your own oxygen mask on first. Don't try to help others when your own finances are a complete mess, because you'll end up trying to help everyone before you help yourself, and then you will run dry and there'll be no one to help you, and now everyone is suffering. Fix your own personal finances first so that you're going to be able to actually effectively help others. My second tip is to manage expectations, and this is linked to the first tip that I gave you, which is to make sure that your own financial house is in order first before you try to help others. When your own finances are in order and you're in control of them, then you'll know how much you're actually able to help with each month, and be very clear about what you're actually helping with. Are you going to be able to help with groceries? Are you going to be able to help with paying fees for someone? What is it, and how much exactly are you actually able to help with? Then communicate this with whomever it is that you're supporting, so that they also know what to expect from you and just how far you are able to help them. This won't only help you to budget for the support that you're offering, but it will also help the person that you are supporting to be able to also plan and strategize realistically, because now they know what to expect from you. The last tip that I have for you is setting boundaries. And I think this is probably the hardest one for anyone really to do. But you really do have to set boundaries, because your expectations will mean nothing if you're unable to actually set the boundary and stand by it. So if you have decided that you can help with this one thing but not the other, then you should stand by that and really show that that is your boundary, and everyone else will start to respect that as well. Your boundaries include how much you're able to help with, who you're able to help, and what that money should be used for. You need to set those boundaries and actually stick to them if anyone else is also going to respect them. So respect your own boundaries first, and everyone else will follow. All others might view black tax as a burden. It is impossible to ignore the crucial role that it plays in society, in families, and helping them get out of poverty, and beyond that, build generational wealth. The debate on whether black tax is a good thing or a bad thing has been happening for years now. And the latest debate came up when Elsa Majimbo shared her views on a black tax. So I'm curious to know what you think about black tax. So let me know down in the comments below.
Sending money back home or to your extended family is such a common African practice that I absolutely hate. I saw my dad doing it, and I don't even know any of my extended family. I saw him doing it with his brothers, with his sisters, with his grandparents, parents, like everyone in the family. As long as you have a job, they expect you to share that money accordingly. And that is just something I will not be participating in. I already knew I would never participate in this.